Well, welcome to the Seven Figure CEO podcast. This is your host, Casey Graham, and we have a special treat here today. An unbelievably beautiful looking redhead that I see over Skype with an amazing beard. But one of my friends, Evan Tardy. Hey, welcome to the show, Evan.
Hey, thanks. Glad to be here with you.
Have you ever been introduced like that?
No, that was definitely a first.
Well, that's what we try to do here. So, man, this is great. So, Evan, tell everybody like who you are and a little bit about what you do at the company called Dr. Axe.
All right. Well, I'll try to give you a little bit more of the short version so we can dive into some other stuff. But basically, my granddad was an entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur. And so I kind of grew up with this entrepreneur kind of in my family and in my DNA, kind of entrepreneur blood, if you will. And started my first business when I was 16, which is definitely not impressive. It was just a mobile car wash, and but I always had this stick in the back of my mind of, I feel like if I go out and build my own thing or build something, the reward is gonna be better in the end than if I just go kind of collect a paycheck. And so that's kind of been in my blood, I think, from my father and my grandfather. And so I went to school, and then when I was graduating, I got connected with this guy, Dr. Axe, and I call him Josh. Got connected with Josh, and he kind of, at the time, he had a chiropractic clinic, and he had this little side hustle called draxe.com, which was really a way for him to take these nutrition articles that he was literally kind of writing. He would type them up and then print them out and give them to his patients in his clinic. And his patients were asking him, they're like, "Hey, this is great. I'd love to be able to share this, or send it to my friends or family." And so he just started putting it online. And so I think he had about a few hundred visitors to the website at that time. And he and I got connected, and he kind of shared a little bit of the vision and kind of the mission. He had a pretty powerful transformational story that his own mom went through with cancer, and just how nutrition played such a big role in her recovery. And so we got introduced, and he painted a little bit of the vision. And on that first phone call, I remember him asking, he said, "Have you read 4-Hour Workweek?" And I said, "No." He said, "Have you read Crush It?" "No." And, at the time, this was 8 years ago, these were two kind of obscure, borderline, unknown authors at the time, Tim Ferriss and Gary Vee. And this was Gary Vaynerchuk. This was before he was Gary Vee, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So this is
right.
old
oh,
school.
yeah.
And so I said, no. I called him back a week later, and I said, all right, I read both the books, and I've never done any of this before, but
Sure.
I'm confident I can figure it out.
What were you? I'm gonna interrupt right here just to see what were you doing in life at that point? Like, where were you, and how did y'all get connected even at that point?
So in life, I was in Dallas, Texas, and our company, Dr. Axe, is based in Nashville. And I literally just graduated. Well, I just finished my finals. And so I had like a week or two in college. So I had a week or two between finals and graduation. And so this has not been on a public interview yet, but here it goes. I was looking to move somewhere. My wife and I, were ready to move, kind of try a new city. And so I got connected to Josh through my brother. Josh went through Entree Leadership, which is Dave Ramsey's kind of business coaching and training program. And so he got connected with my brother there. And so I reached out to my brother. We love Nashville. I'm like, hey, I think we want to head out to Nashville. And so he's like, great. I think you would really hit it off with this guy, Josh, that I just met. He's got this thing going, and on draxe.com. And so he just put us in touch. And so that was happening that week. And then the same time, there's this apartment complex right here in Franklin, which is where it's a suburb of Nashville, right outside of where outside of Nashville, where our headquarters is for all the listeners. And so there's this brand new apartment complex, had been there for less than a year, and they were running this contest, and they were giving away free rent for a year. And the contest was so it was laughable if you look back at it now, but it was basically submit a video and tell us why you deserve free rent. And
That's
so, that was it. Those were the qualifications. And so I looked at and so they posted them onto YouTube. And so I looked at some of the ones that had already been submitted, and I was like, okay. So here's what the videos were. There was basically like, they set up their little like recording camera, get it fidget with it, get it set up, and they're like, hi, we're the Joneses. This is me and my wife, and we have a lot of student loan debt, and free rent would really help us pay off debt. And you're like, so what? Anyone could tell that story. And so I thought, if I just put a little bit of energy and creativity into this, I'm sure I could come up with something. And so I don't like to do things halfway, so I kind of went all in on this. And so I created this whole like Dwell Strong, video, and the idea was, a total spin-off of Live Strong. And it was kind of filmed in the mockumentary style. Like I filmed it all myself, and just like kind of made a fool of myself, just totally having fun with it. And it's still up on YouTube. So the idea was like Dwell Strong, a day in Dwell's biggest fan, a day in the life of. And I created this whole little mini one-page website and set up a little social media feed. And I went to the mall and took these so I created these headbands, which were super low budget. I went and got some yellow fabric from Hobby Lobby and Sharpied on there, Dwell Strong. And I'm wearing this headband, and I go into the mall, and I go into Foot Locker and talk to some of the salespeople there, and I'm like, hey, do you guys have any Dwell Strong gear? And they're like,
oh, it's so good.
Like, let me go check with my manager. We may have some in stock. I don't know. And so it's this whole like back and forth thing. And anyway, I filmed like 7 videos, and then my main video was the day in the life of, and put it all on this webpage, and I submitted it, and it ended up winning, and it was this whole deal. And I still get some of my friends still text me to this day. They're like, #Dwell Strong, So that was what was going on in my life, at the same time during that same week.
And you got free rent for a year.
Yeah, free rent for a year.
And you were graduating college. That was huge at that point.
It was huge, and it allowed me that, and then one other kind of principle I learned during the early days when we weren't making any money, there was no traction, we were just trying a bunch of stuff. That was huge because it allowed me to be even more risky and to take a job where there was no clear like, hey, if you grow this, you're going to get this, you're going to get this percentage every paycheck, or you make these many sales, you're going to get this much money. It was just like, Josh was basically like, hey, come help me figure this thing out. Come work alongside me, and then we'll see where it goes.
Were you getting paid?
Yeah, I was getting paid about $15 an hour, so not much, which was nice because I had free rent, so my rent was covered. But it was not much. It was just barely enough to get started on.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you went, for the listeners, I'm going to fast forward, and then we'll come back and work our way through. You went from $15 an hour to leading over $100 million company.
Correct.
Dude, that is incredible. And here's a principle, I think, that as I've gotten to know you and even started interviewing people, one of the things I found is a principle out of this is that people do what people do. And here's what I mean. You, in that contest, showed, and by opening your mobile car wash at 16, and I bet you have 20 other stories of things in your life in between those periods of times where it wasn't just you doing the average or the normal. There was these things where you just excelled and you finished and you made it bigger than it even should have been and went for it. That is a principle that you did. So when we're looking at hiring, when we're looking at people, very rarely do people come into your organization and then just metamorphically change into some different human being that produces amazing results. Do you agree or disagree with that?
100% agree. I mean, I think the best predictor of future success is kind of their track record. And so especially when evaluating new team members. Absolutely.
So then you show up with Dr. Axe, and you literally told me at that point it's you and him around his kitchen table kind of, hey, how do we take this thing? And did you have any online experience at that point, or were you learning it all?
My online experience was Dwell Strong.
But did y'all start taking courses?
No, I didn't.
Did y'all start learning? Like, at that point,
no,
did y'all start getting educated?
I'll go back to that. Yeah. Let me go back to that time in the story. Yeah, so my online experience is I read Crush It, I read The 4-Hour Workweek, and then I did Dwell Strong. So I didn't have this experience, but I knew that I knew that we could do what was in the books. It was just a matter of time of trying and figuring it out. And so, Josh has been amazing to work for. He's always treated me like an executive, even when I would look back, now, and I'm like, I don't know if I would have treated me at the same level that he did and he has. But we were literally at his kitchen table, and he was running his clinic full time, and so it was just really just me there. In the early days, we had a little website, a little built on Shopify, and we were just kind of reselling some product that he was selling in his clinic. We were just selling some of it online. And yeah, I mean, I remember one thing that we picked up in the book was, hey, there's your email list is this asset. And so we're like, great. And we're growing our email list, in the early days, like growing by 1 or 2 per day. And we got to about 2,000 people on our list. And I remember telling someone, they're like, wow, hey, great job. How are you monetizing the list? And I was like, let me Google that. How to monetize. So we were literally just like, we'd try it in blind faith and then kind of leap and then figure it out as we kept going. And, we tried I was with a meeting with someone earlier or at the end of last year, and he was like, kind of a similar question. He's like, well, what's your did you guys have a background in this? Do you have any, what's your how did you know to do this stuff? I'm like, we didn't know. And we tried hundreds and hundreds of things that didn't work. And then the few that did, we doubled down and then tripled down, and tried to do more of that stuff. As simple as it sounds, that was really it. But it took us about 2 years of not giving up to find a couple of those things.
So your early days, though, what were you selling?
So we were reselling Garden of Life supplements, which are found in retail, kind of a natural
affiliate, like an affiliate kind of thing.
No, so we were actually buying inventory and selling it in the clinic to patients, and then I would kind of take some of that inventory back to the house and sell it online.
Got it. Okay, so then the progression. How long did y'all do? How long would you say y'all were just in like, man, we're just figuring out, we're struggling in the sense of like, there's not like this crazy amount of revenue or traction. Like, what did the revenue journey look like? And you don't have to be specific, but like, I guess more the feel of like, when did you move from like, if we're talking Les McEwen's language, from early struggle to like, hey, we got this thing, we got some revenue, we got some traction. What was that like?
Yeah. So in Les McEwen language, I would say it wasn't even fun for the first year. It was like honestly, we were making no money, and my salary was about $2,000 a month. And I'm like, right. I'm looking at the P&L, if you could even call it that. It was more of just a loss statement. And I'm like, we're losing about $2,000 a month. We're making zero. My salary is $2,000 a month. This is an easy fix. We need to right size things here, and it doesn't end well for me. So that created a lot of urgency to try stuff. But yeah, I mean, the first year, I would say we weren't even in the fun stage. It was just like, try stuff. And fortunately, because of Josh's chiropractic clinic, he was able to kind of continue to invest in the business. Yeah. Without kind of a clear path to revenue.
What was the first thing that kind of hit and like was like, okay, this worked. We got some money coming in.
So the first thing was we created this program called the Real Body Revolution. And, the idea was kind of Dave Ramsey is a mile down the street from us, his headquarters. And so he's really well known in this area. And so we were going to model him and what he had done with his Financial Peace program, which for the listeners, if you're not familiar, essentially it's like an 8 to 12 week course that they sell the course into businesses and churches, and then those groups facilitate it. And so our idea was to model that. We could create a health course, and then I would go sell it to businesses and churches, and they could kind of facilitate taking people through this course taught by Josh. And so that was the idea. And so we created it. We spent about $30,000 on big production, we rented out a church and brought in some patients and filled it up and recorded it. And turned it into this kind of six disc DVD set called The Real Body Revolution. And so this was our idea. We didn't know much more beyond that. And we're like, all right, this is what Dave does. We're just going to try it. And so we created it, did all this stuff, and I ordered about 1,000 copies of this set. And between the time I placed the order and they showed up, Josh had kind of started talking about doing a partnership with this other group that already had a church program. And so they were like, hey, listen, you can't sell your thing into churches or businesses. Like, we already have a corporate wellness program. So if we're going to do a partnership, you have to not sell yours. And so we literally, when they showed up, they just sat in the garage for a few months. And I'm sitting here looking at them like, this content is really great. Like, all the feedback we've gotten from people who actually attended this, we're like blown away, so grateful for it. But yet it's just sitting here like not doing anything. And so I started right around that time. I also started kind of learning about webinars and kind of online, more specific than like the 4-hour work week or Crush It, but more of that kind of taking someone through a funnel or through a sequence and some automation. And so I thought, well, what if we take this Real Body Revolution, rather than try to go create physical copies, what if we rip it, put it into an online membership, and kind of do the whole deal? And so I think it was on Smart Passive Income, Pat Flynn's podcast, where he interviewed a guy, Lewis Howes, and he was kind of breaking down how he uses webinars to sell. And so I just absorbed all of that. I signed up for every webinar I could get my hands on and just really tried to figure out, what are they doing? What emails are they sending when? And try to reverse engineer it. And so piece it all together. It took me about a month to put together this first little webinar that goes to the sales page that, they can buy it and then get the membership thing all automated. And so it took about a month. And so I go, all right, Josh, here's what we're going to do. I took the program. We're not going to sell in the churches, but I put it up online, and here's the sales page. And what I need you to do is record a webinar, and at the end of the webinar, tell people to go to this link and they can buy the thing. And he's like, great, I'll do it. What's a webinar? And I'm like, well, just download this, thing, and let me do it for you. Yeah, and then talk and just teach. And that's what he's the best in the world at, is just teaching and talking about nutrition and really giving value. And so, we got the whole webinar thing set up. And now at this point in the timeline, this was about a year and a half in, 2011-ish. We're honestly probably making $1,000 a month. Just nothing. And $1,000 a month or so. And we don't really have any products. We don't really have anything. We're just reselling the Garden of Life products. And we put together this webinar, and I didn't even know, like, looking back at it, I didn't even know to be like nervous about the technology not working. It was just like, well, why wouldn't it? It worked on the test run. So
sure.
Here we go. And so we set up the whole thing. Josh did the webinar. We didn't even know to record it. We didn't know there was an option. He just did it live. And, he's so passionate and sincere that when he comes across and he teaches, he just comes across so genuine that I think that gives us gave us a lot of grace in the early days. And so we got a few hundred people on the webinar from our email list, and we're selling the program for $97 and take people through the whole webinar thing, 80% content. Then the last 20%, we kind of talk about the program. Like, if you want to get it, go here. And I remember looking at my phone over the course of that next hour from when we ended the webinar to, an hour later, we made $10,000 in 1 hour. And so that was like, wow, there's something here. And so then I started thinking, how can we build on this? Okay, how can we automate this? How can we do more? How can we instead of repurpose a program, how can we niche a program and figure out what our audience really, really wants, and then just go create that? And so then it just started snowballing and building from there on the program side of things.
So that was the information side of the business. So from 2011 to how long did y'all primarily make your money off of programs and information?
So 2011 until, and to this day, a good portion of our business is programs, but we started launching our own supplement. So we started launching supplements in about 2013. So we relied on that for about a good year and a half.
So you used that, and the principle out of this whole thing is everybody looks at your story now, and everybody can come to your offices, and you have a beautiful place in Franklin. You walk in, and there's all these scoreboards up, and there's all these people doing all this stuff. But you guys really were just the ultimate entrepreneur story of try things, never quit. So my question is, for this season, and then we're going to transition more to the bigger leadership stuff, But a lot of people listening to this are quit. They feel like they want to quit, or like they've been trying. I just had a buddy of mine. He's in a specific space, and his stuff didn't work. After a year, he does his webinar, and it cuts off. Literally, the page just shuts. All this stuff, and he's like, "I'm done. I'm out." Why did you stick it out? Why were you're 23, 24, 25? Was there like this just belief that maybe one day it'd work, or you just crazy? Like what was it?
A little bit of both. Looking back at it now, but yeah, I remember that feeling. I remember the exact intersection that I was on, sitting in my beat up Nissan Maxima that's 15 years old, like falling apart, and thinking, and my friends are starting to graduate med school at this point, and they're getting 200K offers, and I'm like, golly, am I crazy? What is going on here? And I honestly, I think, like, reflecting back at it, I think the principle is anything worth doing or worth being good at is worth not being good at when you start. And so that's kind of the takeaway for me. And that was the big one. And then the other one was this quote that has always stood out to me and stuck with me from Keith Ferrazzi. He says, "You learn in your 20s and you earn in your 30s." And so that was just such a helpful, it's not maybe a sense of humility, like helping me kind of stay humble, but realizing, hey, I'm just here to learn. And if I'm making $2,000 a month for it, $5,000 a month, whatever, great. As long as our bills are okay, my family's okay, like I can earn in my 30s. I can earn later, but I'm going through the trenches and learning now. And so now that I'm 31 now I'm like, all right, I kind of like that principle. Why don't I just change it to I'm going to learn in my 30s, I'll earn in my 40s, Yeah. And that can just be a lifelong thing of this decade I'm learning. And so honestly, I think that was my personal side of it. And then, Josh is just such in the Les McGowan language, he's a visionary, and then his secondary trait is also visionary. And so there's no shortage of vision. So I think the other principle that I've learned looking back on that is to be paired up with someone and not try to just do it and muscle through the hard times alone, but to pair up with someone, even if it's in a mentorship type of relationship, who can really help you see a bigger vision than if you're getting stuck in the weeds right now, So that was probably a couple of the biggest principles looking back.
That's awesome. Okay, let's fast forward to what was the strategic decision for you guys that don't know? They started with the courses, and then y'all made not just a shift, but like a kind of a double down on selling physical products, supplements. You can describe it better than I can, but was that the decision that took your business from early millions to the crazy rapid growth, being the 34th fastest growth? I can't remember on the Inc. 5. What was it? What number did y'all come in?
35.
35. And your percentage growth over a 3-year period was how much?
Over 3,000.
Over 3,000% growth. What created that?
So this is a little bit longer of an answer, but there's honestly 4 things that kind of came together. So the timing of us starting to sell supplements is almost more coincidental, but not necessarily, I wouldn't say the driving factor.
Okay.
The decision for us to start selling our own formulations of supplements was that really one of the biggest questions we got from our customers, our followers who weren't customers yet.
What
they wanted to know. What does Dr. X recommend?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so when we started creating our own products, it answered that subconscious question. That one. Yeah. There you go. And so it was pretty obvious. And so that was fortunate, but I wouldn't say that was the turning point. And I think the momentum that we found was really investing in going back to the Crush It, foundation of what our whole business is based on, which is giving value, and then we ask for business. And so how we do that is through education marketing. And so we put out long form articles, really in-depth nutrition articles, giving people not just the what or the details about, the benefits of vitamin B, for example. We also give them, hey, here's some recipes you can use, here's some supplements we recommend. And so it's as exhaustive and thorough as we can make it to really make it valuable content. And there's not selling. We don't put ads all over the place. There's no selling. the only call to action is for you to get on our email list. And then when you get on our email list, we give you even more value. And then after we give you, then we have a call to action, whether it's an offer or, the call to action maybe to go get on a webinar or something like that. And so that's kind of the foundation of all of our marketing activities. So we have
content.
SEO.
So you would say content, and you would
value.
say value content, but you guys have been building that engine for years.
Right.
You can't even Google stuff, dude. I just now got into like collagen. I just now got into taking supplements. I've just now gotten in. I can't Google any phrase or any of those things without you guys showing up somewhere on the first page.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah.
So, but the point is that doesn't happen overnight.
No.
So tell everybody your strategy around that. Like, how was that built?
So I think the biggest thing there is, it absolutely does not happen overnight, but it came from a commitment. So we put together basically our standard, and Josh is very, very passionate about SEO and nutrition and content. And so he kind of put together a template. Here's what we want, right? Here's from a qualitative. When someone reads an article, here's what I want them to be able to see. Then we paired that up. We go to Copyblogger and Neil Patel, quicksprout.com. Between those two resources, that's pretty much our SEO strategy, what they talk about there. It's not necessarily any sort of secret sauce that, there's 7 black hat tricks that we do that no one knows about. Like, there's nothing. It's what's out there, that the best people in SEO are talking about. We just do what they're talking about. But we created this template, and then we chose 10 keywords that we wanted to rank for. And so coconut oil was one of them, frankincense, turmeric. So keywords that are very relevant to our brand. And so we put together a template, put together those words, and we started writing 10 articles for those keywords. And that was it. The goal was, let's put out 10. And after we put out 10, we're like, okay, well, it's kind of working a little bit. What if we do 10 more? And then we did 10 more. And so then we're like, all right, well, where's the bottleneck? Where's this breaking down? We're running into, we have a handful of writers, but we don't have anyone really overseeing, the process and the editing and making sure it all flows. Okay, we need to manage distribution. Yep. And so then then it became about the who. And so then we started hiring and recruiting, the right team to get them in place, to train them up on SEO, train them up on our checklist, and then they go execute it. And so it really was this flywheel. Yeah, absolutely.
So with the hiring piece and SEO and content and this marketing piece of a business, when you said it's about the who, did you guys hire people that already had the skill set, or did y'all bring people in and train them on the skill set?
A little bit of both. So the manager is he's our VP of content. He has a background in print and publishing. And so he came from Rodale, publisher of Men's Health, Women's Health. And then before that, he was at some fitness magazines. And so he has an expertise not only in the content, but also in the publishing industry. But he actually was, I'd say he's probably a 1 or 2 out of a 10 on the SEO, experience and knowledge. But because he was so strong in one of them, we just kind of turned him loose on some of the SEO resources that we had. And we said, here's what we want to do. Here's what's working for us. And then kept kind of, packing on the education and training around that. And then he just took it and ran with it.
He's a leader, figured it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So then, so you have the who, you got the what, you got these articles. And then, so if you were fast forwarding to today and I'm Googling all this stuff, is the flywheel the long tail of the marketing efforts that y'all put in that side of it? Would you say that is where the primary source of your revenue comes from, or would it be paid ads?
Paid ads. So our business now, we're in about less than half of our company is in retail, our products. And then kind of a little bit more than half is in all direct to consumer online. And then Amazon's included in there. So under that bucket, Yeah, about 30% comes from ads, 30% from, email, and then
Yep.
30% kind of from organic and the other. So
Got it.
it's not really anything unique if you were to Google, traffic and conversion distribution of a normal e-com site. I mean, it's fall in line with something like that.
It is, but I think the difference is that like when you guys do get an email address, y'all are able to send people back to so much good content and quality
Yeah.
content that it seems like that is kind of like the foundation of your whole business is built upon that content and it all working together and you have somebody staying on top of these thousands and thousands of pages, right? And making sure that they stay up to date and connected. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. So that is exactly it. So yeah, there's so many directions we could go in this. I'm so passionate about all of this, but I think the most distilled down version is that, yeah, it comes back to us being able to give value, and rather than us just kind of sending curated content, we get to send them content to our site,
Yours.
which, yeah, it's ours, and it also gets the dual benefit of continuing to establish us more and more as the authority.
That's really good. So I think my point in the podcast is we have a lot of owners that listen, is that they walk away going, what am I doing of value to our end users? What are we adding value in content? And most businesses you would think today are, and most don't. Heck,
Yeah.
we don't. Like it great. I mean, we're trying to get stuff moving and all this kind of stuff. And like, it's so hard to get that thing going because you put the stuff up and you don't reap a benefit on day, even 90. Like This is like a 5 year, there's probably somebody way smarter, but at least a couple year strategy of getting a flywheel moving.
Yes, absolutely. So 100%. And it takes, I would say we didn't really start to see the growth and the benefit until about year 3 of doing this. But we didn't, it wasn't like, well, we'll kind of dip our toe in the water and then 3 years later, it was kind of like, oh, it's working, we'll do more of it. It was like, no, we're climbing the mountaintop and every day we're chipping away at getting there. And one day it's going to pay off, but we're continuing to invest in it as a company. So absolutely, it is an investment. But now the flywheel's spinning. We have over 100,000 new email subscribers every single month because of how much traffic we get on our website. So it's an asset that continues to pay off in the long term. But yeah, the 3 to 5 year investment is definitely there.
That's amazing. Okay, let's just talk real quick about how you've changed in the process. So from going $15 an hour to over $100 million, and you're the president of the company, how have you changed? How have you had to become different over the years? And I talked to one guy, and he said that every new phase, he feels like he has to burn down the old self and recreate this new self. What do you think about that? How have you done it?
That is exactly it. I use similar language. Like, it seems almost like once we kind of hit a little bit of growth, once we grew past about 5 people on the team, and the company continued to grow, every 3 months, I realized there's some sort of like, I'd walk into the office and just kind of have this sense that what I've been doing for the last 3 months is not what I can continue to do for the next 3 months. It's not what's serving the team and the company in their best interest.
Like, give an example.
Yeah, so a perfect example to kind of the stark contrast from today to where I was so focused on the tactics. I was reading every single marketing blog, and I just put the blinders on to everything else, and it was all about, hey, what's the next tactic? What's the best headline to drive the best open rate, the best click, the best revenue? And that was the only thing I was focused on. And then it's like that blinder, because my background's my degree's in advertising. I love marketing and selling. It's like those blinders slowly like came off over the last 8 years. And now I'm like, me being personally more like, knowing the tactics and submitting tactics. And hey team, marketing team, you guys need to be doing this. That's actually like, I'm actually getting in their way and learning how to work with them more. Like, the more I speak up in meetings, the more I'm like, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need this. The more they kind of quiet down and they're like, all right, I mean, I guess if that's what you want, we'll go do it.
Right.
When I totally miss, like, when I'm just in there listening and I'm like, hey, what do you think? I immediately have an opinion. Maybe that's the entrepreneur in me. I don't know, but I always have an opinion. But it doesn't mean it's the right opinion. And it doesn't mean I should share it. I think that's probably a big one that I've learned is working with the team, going from, hey, this is what you need to do, to, hey, here's what we're trying to accomplish. What do you think we should do? And then even if it's not my opinion, or it's not something that I feel like is perfectly right, giving them the autonomy to go try it. And if they win, like, man, I'm getting behind it and celebrating it. If they fell, I'm also going to get behind them and celebrate it because we tried something, And so we're constantly like, how fast can we try ideas, analyze the results, and then try something new? And if I'm the one that's constantly like, my idea is the best idea, like it does not create a culture or foster a culture of people willing to put themselves out there and try and make mistakes and learn from it. So that's probably the biggest one, is going from, hey, I'm Mr. Tactics and I'm going to be super productive today, to, hey, I'm leading a team of 80 people, and what do they need from me? I can't be heads down buried in some marketing blog. I need to be thinking about how these 80 people can work together to achieve the most as a team. So what does your
schedule look like these days then, as the president of somebody the company this size?
So I have,
what do you do?
Weekly, here's what I do. I have about 30% of my schedule is weekly kind of one-on-ones with my direct reports to just check in.
And direct reports would be like VPs?
My VPs, right.
Okay.
So I have VP of e-com, VP of content, VP of marketing technology, and then customer service.
So let's just take the VP of technology real quick. Just say, when you do a one-on-one, what do you do?
I shut up and ask questions. Those are some of the two biggest things. And so the biggest thing I'm looking for is, because these guys could all be, I could be working for them. The roles could just as easily be reversed. And, these guys, they're just some of the smartest people I know. And so they don't need from me to tell them, hey, here's what I need you to do, or here's what direction to go. What I'm looking at when I'm meeting with them is, hey, where are you stuck that with whatever resources or, my position, what I have, what can I do to get you unstuck? That way you can get, more planes off the runway faster, smoother. And so it's a pretty loose agenda, unless we're kind of diving into some sort of tactical thing. That's pretty much it. And I asked them to bring the agenda. So
that's good.
They're bringing me, hey, here's where I'm stuck. And that's pretty much what we spend time on.
And what else do you do during the week?
Network management by walking around. So literally just go sit down by people, in all the ranks of the team, and just say, hey, what's up? And so sometimes we dive into like what they're actually working on. Sometimes they're just like, hey, I just got back in town from a family thing. And I'm like, oh, tell me about it. And so really just showing the team that I actually care about them as people. I'd say 20% of my job. I just walk around and try to connect with the team and make sure. And then through that, it's really crazy. Like, it feels unproductive, but through that, something will come up where they'll say, hey, you know what? I had this great idea. And this is 10 minutes into the conversation where they're like, I had this great idea about this new opportunity that blah, 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 blah. And they're like, but I just didn't think anyone really cared about it, or it seemed like we have too much other stuff going on. And they're like, that is amazing. Stop what you're doing and go do that. Like these types of things that just bubble up where people are like, I didn't know the proper forum or channel to kind of insert this idea. Where I'm like, oh, that is brilliant. And so giving them those channels and kind of, putting some momentum behind some, and usually it's crazy because I think in a culture that's strong, when people are, if they're not engaged, when they're in their shower, I tend to have the best ideas when I'm like walking to the car or in the shower, right? I brush my teeth. And when I'm not thinking about anything else, but I'm putting myself in the team shoes, and I'm like, if they're not engaged, because I've experienced this exact same thing, if they're not engaged, their best ideas when they're in their shower or walking to the car are going to be about, oh, here's the way I could, improve my fitness, or here's the way I could
get out of here. Yeah, it's just
get out of here, or nothing to do, or I need to go hang out with my neighbor. Yeah. But when they're engaged and connected, and they're part of kind of a vibrant, like engaging culture, those ideas are going to be, oh, you know what? This process is breaking down, and I think I found out the culprit. And I can't wait to get in to find out if that's true and see if I can fix it. Yeah. those types of things. So kind of unearthing some of that by just walking around and then putting fuel behind that to help them go get after it. So that's the other, I don't know what my percentages are totaling up to now, but
Sure.
Networking management by walking around kind of weekly, regular check-ins, and then learning, reading, and just kind of, and then I have about 20% that's just, my process backlog stuff.
Got it. Dude, this has been so fantastic. So I could literally do this for 4 hours with you, and I'm already a little bit over. But man, I really appreciate this. So if you're talking to the entrepreneur that's listening, and you're going to say just one last thing to them, because you've been there, you've been at the table when you're not making money, you've been there when it's hard and all that, and everybody's not going to have $100 million story. What would you say to that person?
Three things. There are three things. One is the dip. Two is the 100 million. And then the third one will come to me when I get to it. So if I can remember it. So first, the dip. So Seth Godin has a great book called The Dip.
Yeah.
And, he talks about, like in everything that is worth doing or worth growing or getting to the other side of the dip, there is always something that's a weeding out thing. And so in med school, pre-med, he talks about, it's organic chemistry. For whatever reason in pre-med, that is the hardest class that it weeds out the most pre-med students. And so if you make it through that, then you have a good chance of getting into med school. And so that's kind of the one thing. But the people who have six-pack abs, well, in January 1st, like everyone else, they have the same goals. They want to, continue with their fitness goals throughout the year. But come March 1st, they're the ones who are still in the gym. They're the ones who are still with their diet when everyone else is giving up, right? And so there's the dip of anything worth doing is worth not being good at when you start. That kind of what I said earlier. And so just know that if it's hard and you're in it right now, that does not mean it's time to give up. You might be right in the middle of the dip, and it might be time for you to double down and push through. So that'd be the first thing. The second thing would be the 100 million piece. One thing I've learned is, and this kind of ties into the third thing, which is knowing what you want. They're kind of one and the same. But
sure.
One thing I've learned is that a $10 million in revenue company, a $50 million, and a $100 million, at least this is what I've experienced so far, all three of them look very, very differently. And so even the work that I do today, as much as I love working with the team and the strategy, it is so different than what I was doing 5, 6, 7 years ago. And so if you are the type of entrepreneur who loves doing the tactics and you love just like geeking out about whatever your craft or expertise is, like, don't put all this pressure on yourself to grow a team of 100 people and get to 100 million. And like, if you love your craft, see how small you can keep it and still make, have the lifestyle you want. Like, there's no reason that everyone has to like set out to go hit 100 million or whatever. And I'm telling you, from being in the seat that I'm in of where we're at today, like, my role is so different than what it was, And so if I was still like really obsessed with the craft of the technique of the marketing and the whatever, like, I would really be missing it, And so I think that kind of ties into the third one, which is kind of knowing yourself and know what you want. And if you want to do the craft, like, man, by all means, just like do that and forget about this pressure about getting to 10 million or 100 million. Just go. If you can do what you love every day and you get to enjoy the journey, man, like, what a reward in itself.
That's really good. And one of my board members, and I think we talked about this, he said, it's owner intent. Answer these two questions. Who are you and what do you want?
Yeah.
You can't do any business strategic planning that's proper until you know who you are and what do you want as the owner or one of the owners in the process. Because everything else is just this outside pressure to make up crap to say, oh, I need to be $1 billion company. Well, why?
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing about that is the question nobody else asks is, what is it going to cost you to become a $100 million company personally? What is it going to cost your family? What's it going to cost your relationships? So there's the downside as well. So that's good, man, dude. Thanks for doing this. This was so good. Oh, I wish I had so much more time with you. I'm going to have you back, okay?
Maybe we'll do a part 2. It'd be awesome.
All right, brother. Hey, thanks for your time today. And guys, thanks for listening to the Seven Figure CEO podcast.